Many of us as pastors find our self-worth in the things that we do. Then the pandemic came and we couldn't do them. And I'm wondering how that has impacted us and how we react to this statement that I found by John Mark Comer, who said, "Seminary prepares you to do ministry, but doesn't prepare you for what ministry will do to you." We have been impacted, obviously, pre-pandemic with the things we could do, then we couldn't do them. And how does ministry impact us now? Because the things we can do, the things we can't do. And how does ministry change me as a person? For better or maybe not so good? What do you think?
To go back to the question regarding seminary, my facetious and yet honest response to that is, well, how could it? You can't be prepared for any of the events in life until you actually experience them. We can tell you, someone can tell you what it's like to go through this, that, or the other experience, but until you're there, you might have been given some markers that might be helpful, but you'll forget them.
Yeah,
Initially.
in the excitement of whatever it is,
exactly.
Yeah.
You might recall them over time, but you might not, because it is so overwhelming. I wish that in a classroom I could have prepared people for the emotional response. But
the emotional response to ministry.
That's something that's an individual thing. And it's how they've been prepared, not only by the educational piece, but how they've been brought up throughout their lives and how they've been taught, trained, and how they've learned to experience the different things that happen to them in the world.
Our own personalities mixed with our spiritual gifts, our talents, our family of origin issues, all speak into this and mix together in some way, I'm sure.
My understanding is that seminaries have gotten a lot more astute at looking at those kind of issues, Bruce. I like that last phrase in that quote, what ministry does to us. It kind of points or alludes to the idea that ministry is impactful personally. It's definitely emotional. It definitely has twists and turns and unexpected events like we're experiencing right now. And it kind of, to me, alludes to something we'll talk about a little bit later, and making it okay for us to take care of ourselves. The unhealthy pastor is not going to be effective in the congregation. That whole idea of putting on your own mask first before you put it on your airplane passenger next to you.
Seems counterintuitive, but
does.
It really is the safest thing.
I think sometimes we kind of think, well, somehow that's, I shouldn't be concerned about myself. I need to be, concerned about the other person. But, even Christ took care of himself. I mean, he got tired, but I don't see unhealthiness in him,
And he said, let's get away.
Right. Yeah. Part of my devotions this morning talked about Jesus getting up early in the morning and going out to spend time with the Father while everybody else slept, because he knew the kind of ministry demands that would be on him. We understand that the command that Jesus gave us was to go make disciples. So how do we do that when we're dealing with so many things that don't seem ministry related?
Get a good administrative pastor if you can, And I know that is not helpful in a small church environment, but
how do we stay? I guess my question is, and how do we stay focused on the main thing? Stephen Covey in his book talks about keeping the main thing the main thing. And so how do we stay focused on that when there's all of this noise around us?
Well, in a sense, what you said a few minutes ago about things that aren't ministry related, I'm not sure there is much of anything that isn't ministry related. That's where people are.
Right.
That's where people
great
express their hearts. It's where people express what's important to them. It's where they express their views on politics and their views on just about everything else. So that engaging in life is itself ministry related. I don't know how we can possibly bring a text from the Word of God into life if we're not engaged in life. Forget who it was. Was it John Stott that said we ought to preach with the newspaper in one hand and the Bible in the other, and not to talk about the news, but to talk about what the news reveals to us about people and about life.
Maybe that really becomes a key at that point, is to understand that it is about life. I mean, that is ministry. Jesus met people out on the street. I mean, as he was walking, I've often commented that so much of Jesus' ministry happened through interruption. When he was traveling somewhere, somebody yelled to him, "Hey, help me, heal me, do this, do that." Walking through a crowd, a woman grabbed the back of his robe. So much of life, all of life really is ministry. Maybe that's a key point, Ken, for us to be aware of when we feel like we aren't getting anything done.
And the incident that you cited here with the woman grabbing, he's doing ministry. He's on his way. I'm doing ministry. Don't bother me is too easily our response.
Right.
Life happens. Life tugs.
Yes.
And pain tugs. But if we're too busy doing ministry, we don't feel the tug.
Bruce, you started talking with this conversation about discipleship too, and it kind of how do we look at discipleship? I think there have been times when we've compartmentalized various aspects of ministry, but discipleship it's every day, 24/7, 365.
It is life.
It's life. We're hopefully modeling and teaching our congregants that discipleship is every day. If God is sovereign, there isn't anything that's happening accidentally. And that kind of alleviates me from, a manufactured pressure to say this is ministry and this isn't. It's all encompassing. It's just God is with us. God superintends every happenstance meeting with people. When you're at the convenience store, it's not by accident that you're greeting the gal behind the counter. You know what I mean? That can become a redemptive moment too. And imagine if our whole congregation had that kind of a mindset.
The whole concept of an incarnation is God not just taking on flesh in order to sacrifice it on a cross, but to take on life, to step into it, to where it's actually happening among people.
So my identity as a pastor is not when I'm standing up there behind the pulpit or in front of a crowd of people or just a few people. It's not when I'm leading a Bible study or teaching a Sunday school class. My identity is found in my relationship with Christ and my relationship with other people. Just doing life is ministry.
One of the most impactful, the pastor that I came to Christ under is a gentleman you guys would know. He showed up at our young adult Halloween party. And that was the first time I ever saw a pastor outside of a suit coat. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I found that very compelling, though. This is like a real guy. And as I got to know this gentleman, his family, his past, his life, I could see Jesus through him. It wasn't like there was a facade that kept me from seeing Christ through his weakness. I could see Jesus through who he was as a real person. He was an authentic person, and I wanted to emulate Jesus as I saw through him. It was kind of an amazing thing. He showed up at a Halloween party.
So as
in costume, I hope.
Well, yeah, he was actually, and I'm kind of reticent to even admit we had a Halloween party, but
that's where ministry takes place, life to life.
Yes.
And so even as we bear burdens, as we carry our own, as we carry others, but it's living out those relationships and even sometimes lamenting together
Yes.
that we are doing ministry.
Yeah.
It's not just when we're standing up front. It's not when I have a coat on or a tie or something like that. It's not about being inside a particular building that we call a church,
All
but
of a
we
sudden,
realize that
Yeah.
it's so much bigger.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, pastor becomes accessible
Mm-hmm.
when it's not just behind the pulpit.
And really can help then
Yes.
bear one another's burdens.
Yes.
And it's not dominated by the feeling, okay, now I have to say something that sounds like a passage from Scripture.
Mhm.
In a sonorous voice.
All right, there you have it. Live life. It's not easy. It's not always fun, but we hope that these videos, we're about halfway through now, with Steve and Ken and myself, will be helpful and encouraging to you, even in the midst of lamenting the loss that we all feel, that we all have to deal with. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you the next time.